Comic-Con ICV2 sales report of comics has been released already, and as you would expect it, the quote-unquote comic book pros are now in the defense of comics, whereas a month ago they were angry, angry that manga was not called to accountability the same way that American comic books are nowadays. And people like Jerry Conway just ran their mouths on Twitter saying how they should strive for accountability of manga within the industry because they are despicable, sexist drawings that might get kids turned on somehow. Now they are saying that manga is part of the industry and that they should all be thankful that it is selling so well because it is helping the industry. Yeah, you heard it just like that. Manga is keeping the comic book industry healthy, somehow at least in the minds of all of these idiots out there. Now, why do we say this thing? Well, because Tim Silly is one of the best shields out there, the best denier that you would ever find to say that the comic book industry is not in danger, that the comic book industry is doing just fine. And he says the following in a tweet, quote, "Manga is part of the comic book industry. It's comics, as are digital comics and comics for kids," end quote. So now we can also include Scholastic, and we can also include Manga and Viz Media as part of the industry, and we can also be thankful that Barnes and Noble are selling so many manga volumes every single day because that is keeping the industry also healthy. Oh, so great. Oh, so stunning and brave. You wouldn't believe it if we were under different circumstances, but such is the nature and the reality of current comic books. Now, for anyone that does not understand how this works, let me just tell you that the comic book industry is created mainly by the comic book publishers out there, like Marvel, DC, Image, and we have many others, like IDW, well, not for too long, but we also have Boom Studios and we have Dynamite, and also, whether they like it or not, on both sides, we also have independent comic books. They create the industry as a whole, and we can very well say that the industry is divided precisely into those that are mainstream comic books like Marvel and DC, and those other comics that are independently created, and many of which have been encased into the label of Comicsgate. And now that we have these two divisions very well stated and very well clear there, we also have the manga. Now, manga is different to, say, how Marvel publishes their books, because in the case of manga, we have companies that devote their time and their efforts to publishing exclusively manga created in Japan, where it comes from. And sure enough, like Silly and many others have pointed out in this new debacle that we have in the comic book industry, sure enough, manga, the term in Japanese, means comic books. Yes, that is true, but it's not the same as American comic books. And why is that? Simply put, because unlike Marvel, that they publish their own characters and they don't have to pay anyone for publishing their characters, companies like Viz, for example, they have to pay a license fee to the company that originally ran that in Japan. They also cover expenses to the authors in Japan. And nothing, absolutely nothing of the artwork or the story or anything like that is done within the United States. Simply put, the only thing that they are doing in the US is taking out the Japanese characters and changing them for normal, regular handwriting that we know and translate it into English. That's the only thing that they are doing. They are not doing anything else. And somehow that is helping people like Tim Silly, who works for Image, for example, Because I don't understand how Image can get benefited from manga selling well. In the end, manga, whether they like it or not, they are their competitors. And now it seems to be also kids' books like the police dog thing or any of those things. Those things are also now their competition because they have boosted in sales. Just to give you an example of how dire the situation for the comic book industry is right now, remember how in April, in the top 20, we had only manga. And amongst the different volumes, we had Demon Slayer beating the crap out of all of them. Sure enough, we had there My Hero Academia and other things, but Demon Slayer was there more prominently than any other title out there. And outside the top 20, yes, we did have comic books, but not inside the top 20 positions in the best sell graphic novels for adults in the month of April. Now, what that means is that manga is killing it, and that is because they are offering their audience what they want. Politics free content, and I am sure that many will jump out of their freaking seats right now and say, hey, but comic books and manga are the same because they are all talking about politics. Manga can be very political. Yes, idiot, yes, but the difference is that while the comic book industry is quite open about trying to preach and lecture the readers about what is correct and good politics, and they try to insert their own ideologies. Manga is not trying to do any of that. It's presenting the politics in a neutral sort of way. Also, manga doing good doesn't mean that the whole of the industry is doing good, because if that were the case, then we would also have as many comic books in the top 20 position as we had manga titles. And I'm talking about graphic novels. That means the compilations of stories out there of our favorite characters. That is not the case. Why? Well, because those graphic novels that were released recently are just crap. You remember Gotham High? Well, you are in the lucky ones, or maybe unlucky, because really nobody remembers that shite. Or that Aqualad sort of gay romance graphic novel, whatever the shite. Well, if you remember that, I don't know if I should congratulate you or if I should just feel sorry for you. But the reality is that the graphic novels out there that DC and Marvel are trying to sell are not really selling. And the compilations of stories are not selling as much as the manga volumes are. Simply put, there is more value that the fans are putting into manga than in comic books. And while it is true that we are still talking about sequential art, it is not the same, because people like Tim Seeley and Dan Slott and many other imbeciles out there that run their mouths that everything is fine with the comic book industry, they won't have a job if at the end of the day comic books are down and manga reigns supreme. Manga is created in Japan, not in the US. This is not going to help them in any way, shape, or form. So, my recommendation for all of those guys out there that are saying that the comic book industry is just fine, I suggest that you start learning how to write and also how to draw manga, because that is the only thing that is going to be out there for you available in the near future, should you not try to change course. And also, I would even post this possibility. Perhaps it is already too late for any of you to try and save the comic book industry. Anyways, as usual, that is just my opinion, so let me know yours down below in the comments. And if you liked this sort of content, I hope to see you here the next time. Until that set time, everyone, peace out.